Welcome, everyone. Go ahead and take your seats right there in the jury box. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome you to the digital court for today's explainer. We're setting up a pretty high-stakes investigation today into a massive challenge that literally every modern organization faces. How do we assign blame? How do we verify commitment? And ultimately, who exactly is responsible when things go horribly wrong in the cloud? We're going to break down the shared responsibility model and cloud governance, and we'll do it by putting some real-world scenarios on trial. So here's the opening statement for our trial. It's the core narrative hook of our whole investigation. Think about this for a second. How do we actually ensure a cloud provider's commitment when we can't even physically see their data centers? I mean, this is the fundamental blind trust problem of cloud computing, right? Because we don't have physical control or direct access to the infrastructure anymore. We can't just stroll in, inspect the hypervisors, or, check the actual physical locks on the server room doors. We are operating entirely in the cloud. And that means we need a highly formalized, verifiable way to ensure these providers are actually sticking to strict security standards. Okay, let's dive into this. To solve that whole blind trust problem, we need irrefutable, hard material evidence. Now, for cloud security specialists, this evidence usually comes in three primary forms. First up, we've got SOC 2 Type 2 reports. This is basically our definitive proof of continuous security, availability, and processing integrity over a long period of time. Next, there are the ISO 27017 and 27008 certifications. Think of these as our absolute gold standard international benchmarks for cloud security controls and protecting personal data. And finally, the SLA. This is your binding legal contract. It strictly defines exactly what the provider has to do for availability, like giving you a 99.99% uptime guarantee, and it legally outlines the financial compensation you get if an unplanned outage happens. These three documents, they're your absolute baseline proof in any governance strategy. All right, arms with our governance evidence, let's call our very first case to the stand. Case 1, server vulnerability. Picture this. An organization is running its critical workloads on rented virtual machines in an IaaS environment, infrastructure as a service. Suddenly, complete disaster strikes. A hacker successfully breaches the server by exploiting a known, unpatched Linux OS kernel vulnerability. The breach causes just massive operational disruption. Naturally, the customer is absolutely furious. They're immediately pointing the finger at the cloud provider, accusing them of failing to patch the system. Well, it's time for our first dramatic verdict. Is the cloud provider actually at fault here? Actually, no, not at all. The guilty party is the customer. You see, in an IaaS environment, the lines of responsibility are very, very strictly drawn. The provider? They just guarantee the underlying infrastructure and the security of the hypervisor. Managing the operating system, running routine security updates, doing rigorous patch management for those virtual machines, that is exclusively the responsibility of the customer. You were handed a perfectly secure infrastructure, but, well, you failed to lock the virtual doors by updating your OS. So, in case 1, the customer is definitively guilty. Okay, let's move right along to case 2, data leak. This time, we are operating in a fully managed PaaS, platform as a service environment. So a developer, probably looking for a quick Friday afternoon shortcut, decides they need a faster way to transfer a massive batch of data. Just for the sake of pure convenience, they mess with the database permissions and open the whole thing up to the public internet. Yep, they completely removed the password. And naturally, the internet is totally unforgiving. The database is instantly discovered and boom, the data is stolen. Now, what's really interesting about this case is the verdict. You might be thinking, hey, it's a fully managed PaaS service, right? Surely the provider shares at least a little bit of the blame here. But once again, the gavel comes down squarely on the customer. While it's true that in a PaaS setup, the provider fully secures the underlying infrastructure, the host operating system, and even the database engine patching, configuring the actual access controls, managing identity, and data governance, that is still absolutely 100% on the customer. The provider kept the database running securely. Your developer simply propped the front door wide open for the entire internet to just walk right through. And that brings us to our final trial for today. Case 3, service outage. An organization's central cloud email system goes completely dark for 12 straight hours. I mean, the entire business basically grinds to a halt. Communication completely breaks down, and serious revenue is lost. They investigate, and the root cause is confirmed as a massive technical failure at the provider's primary data centers. This is in a pure SaaS, software as a service environment. The customer is entirely locked out and totally unable to function for half the day. Well, finally, the gavel comes down on the provider. In a SaaS model, continuous availability is entirely on their shoulders. They own the entire stack, from the physical hardware all the way up to the application interface. So when that system goes dark because of a data center failure, they're entirely at fault. And this brilliantly illustrates the immense value of that material evidence we discussed earlier. Because the provider failed to meet their availability commitment, the customer can now pull out that SLA and invoke those strict compensation clauses. That 99.99% uptime guarantee was violated, and the provider is now legally obligated to compensate the customer. So the crucial point we really need to take away here is the hard truth of the shared responsibility gap. Most cloud breaches today, they don't actually happen because big providers get hacked. They happen because customers leave their settings and their permissions totally without protection and isolation. It happens all the time. Organizations consistently make this fatal assumption that just migrating to the cloud automatically offloads all of their security duties. But as our digital court cases just prove to us, your data, your identities, and your access management, they are always your responsibility. Regardless of whatever deployment model you're using, you absolutely must possess a complete, unwavering awareness of where your management scope actually ends. Which brings us to the end of today's explainer. I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Ask yourself, are your organization's cloud boundaries truly secure? Or are you going to be the next one on trial? Remember, truly understanding your exact side of the shared responsibility model is your very first firewall. Don't let a simple misunderstanding of, say, who manages the OS patch lifecycle or who audits the database permissions be the thing that brings you down. Take this insight with you, go audit your configurations, rigorously review those SLAs, and make absolutely sure you aren't leaving any digital doors wide open. Thank you so much for joining me in the digital court today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and stay secure.